Welcome to the Her Story Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Story Circle. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Hello. So my name is Sherry Lynne Williams, and I am based in the United States, down in southern Colorado. So my story that I'd like to share the pivotal moment with, it started with me on the end of a bed in a brothel. Yes, that's right. And as I sat there on this bed, I can relate that, I had tenseness in my body. My heart was racing, and I was really uncomfortable in this. However, as I looked around at the pink walls, they were not a color that I would have chosen. And I looked at the single piece of artwork. Again, not something I would have chosen. But I can share with you that this was my choice to be here, sitting on the end of this bed. And the choices that brought me here came from the previous events of my life. You see, I came here from the city of Las Vegas, bright light city, and I had had an experience there where there were three men, and one of them was a savior. Because if the one savior man hadn't acted the way he did, I certainly would have been raped, and that would have changed the whole directory of my life. But I was able to escape that night. I ran up to the rooftop, and as I stood on this rooftop, there was a lot of decisions. There was a lot of momentum that had to happen for me. Which were the choices that I was going to make next? And so there was a breaking point in me that particular night that said, okay, this is it. You've just done too much. So a little advertisement came to me after that rooftop, and it brought me to this town of Winnemucca, a little tiny mining town off of the freeway. And that's where this brothel sat. So I remember driving in from Las Vegas to Winnemucca and looking around this town thinking there's more glitter on the trusses in the backseat of my car than there is in this entire town. But I had decided to make this my home. And so the tension in my body on this particular day was because a friend of mine, who was also a client, had come in, and his name was Big Iron. So back in those days, the truckers, they have handles and they would visit the brothels. And he and I had a conversation on friendships, old friendships, new friendships, our friendship. And it had really triggered something inside me. And that trigger was, is it time to move on? Is this the time for the next step? And I felt in my body, as I felt the tension and the tightness and my heart just beating out of my chest, that yes, it really was the right time. So I knew it was going to be me and my 2 feet when I left here. I knew that if I wanted to leave the career of being a prostitute, that I was going to need a resume. And so on that day, I decided this resume would need to get written. It would have to account for this 5 years of off the radar from life, off the radar from what society called life. And so I thought about what were the attributes of a prostitute. And I thought about it and I said, well, they have to have excellent customer service. They have to be good listeners. They need to be able to deal with challenging and difficult personalities. And so with that, I wrote a resume. And for that 5 years of gap, I put in various customer service positions and put that resume in an envelope, dropped it in the mail slot in the local Winnemucca post office, and I got the job. So I handled what I could handle. I had a place to live that was safe. I had a car that could get me to the nearby office. But what I couldn't account for was that out of a 3-man office, one of them was an addict. So in short order, I got taken down a route that I wasn't wanting or ready for again. Next move was get in my car and drive. So I drove to Virginia in the United States, and I was living the mess of drugs, the goo of prostitution, and wondering how I was going to recover from this. And I really wasn't doing a very good job until I met a friend of mine, a lovely woman named Lee. And Lee says, I can get you a job. So I said, okay. And I got this job as a stripper. Hey, it was better than the jobs I had been doing. And Lee brought life back into me. She brought laughter. She brought fun. And after we were stripping one particular evening, she said, let's go dancing. And that brought in the next level of my life. So we met Vince and Vince. I'm not kidding you. At this bar on a Wednesday night. And it was like the devil and my savior again. Well, I made the choice and I went for the savior. So if we were to flash back to that period of my life, it would have seemed I was washed up. It would have seemed like there wasn't much for me to go forward from. But I can share with you, in the time past that, in the year 2014, I walked the stage at Cal State University. I was a high school dropout. I went to college. I was handed a Bachelor of Science degree in biological studies. I was employed by the United States Navy as a scientist. And further years forward, I received a top secret clearance, and I worked for other government agencies beyond that. So what I want to really bring forward is the importance of, I've reached the top of a mountain, but there's more to come. There's more to do. And all of those years past that time have continued to grow me. And what I've realized are there 3 very important things to keep in mind as we go forward in our life. And that is to revisit the data points of the life that we've lived, to see that they all are important, to reframe those moments of our life, that I reframed my life to see how valuable and important it was and how valuable and important I am. And then finally to reconnect with who we are in the life that we lived, because we are so valuable. And what I realized as I sat on the end of that bed is that my heart was talking to me. My heart gave me a compass that I followed, even though at the time I didn't hear it. But ultimately, I began to hear the voice of my heart, and it navigated me through all of the journeys of the life that I can barely share just a small bit of here with you today. And that I think it's so important for us to all realize that it's because of the life that we lived and because of the life that we live currently, it's needed in the world today. You and I, as our whole unique individuals, are needed. And that is the ultimate take home from the journey that I've lived in my life, is to just see ourselves and see how powerful our journey is through all the moments.
Saying you have gone through so much in your life, and I know you call yourself defiant by nature. What does defiance mean to you in the context of leadership?
Oh my, defiance is a very hot frequency. I feel I morph myself into the frequency of openness and change within what currently exists out in society, in that I don't conform to the current conversations. If I feel and want to show up differently within it, I think it's less defiance than it is the courage of being present in a source of conversation and holding a space that is felt differently by others.
And you have come out of all of these experiences with such positivity. Where does that come from?
I feel my soul was blessed with a lot of that positivity. And in the journey of my life, I am and have been a joyful, more positive spirited person showing up, and sensitive, that when I was deep in the depths and when I was with the men in the prostitution field, I felt the need and the acceptance of my softness, of my capacity to hold space for them. And that, in the big sense of all of the years of drugs and prostitution, allowed me to really understand that humans really just want love and they want connection more than anything. So I share with most people when we go down this road of about prostitution, is that if I had to give a percentage, 30%, it wasn't even about sex, it was about connection. And when I started experiencing that, Gertrude, it opened my heart, because they were in such a place of need. It wasn't desire, it was a need for connection. It was a need to be able to sit on the couch and have someone listen and just be there for them.
So, what is it that women need to understand about prostitution, and why men would go outside of their relationships or their marriages to find that connection with women? What is it that you could teach women today that we don't understand?
All right, girlfriend, we're going to have like an hour and a half for this conversation. I'm going to reiterate one piece of the last question, is that they really, truly want connection. They want a space that is theirs, where they are heard. And I think we can all appreciate that. But in the busyness of life, it doesn't happen. And in my space as the prostitute, once I got to the brothel, we're talking about the majority of the work was truckers. It was traveling salesmen who, let's look at the trucker alone. They spend their life going back and forth across the United States here. They don't have time to have a relationship, and they certainly don't have time to show a commitment in the space. So for that particular client, it was a vital and needed, very needed aspect that kept them going every day. That, we would see the same truckers come by. We would have conversations and be able to kind of hang out in the living room, per se, of the brothel, where it was just a nice family that they could come to. And that in and of itself is the connection. And they all really were very much absent of that if we weren't there to provide it and to help be that family that they could show up with. Yeah.
It's fascinating. So what inspired you to go back to college, go back to higher education? What was the turning point where you thought you could really turn your life around, and you did?
Yeah. Isn't it amazing? Like, when I tell the story, like I just was able to do with you, what an eye-opener of a journey. It's this whole arc. And where my arc took me was being in a city where I would occasionally drive by a university, and I would think to myself, man, I'd see people with their suitcases dragging in their backpacks, or they're sitting on walls on their phones. And it's just like, wow, what a life that would be. I wonder what that would be like. So on one aspect, I think I manifested it, because I said more than one, I wonder what it would be like to be a student. But being a high school dropout put a whole different spin on things, right? Like, I didn't know that I had faith to even go out and get, in the United States, we can get a GED, which is a substitute diploma.
Yes.
So I put this out there when I was working for the city of Phoenix, and then I got the job with the federal government. And lo and behold, 6 months into the job with the federal government, my supervisor comes up and he says, we got a bunch of engineers working for us, and we really need someone to do environmental. How do you feel about going to college? And I was just like, let's think back to that resume. Like, I didn't not tell the truth. I just didn't expand on the whole truth. So when they asked me, what high school did you go to? I could tell them I went to a high school. I just never said I graduated.
Yes.
So this man comes up to me. He offers me the opportunity of truly my lifetime. And I was able to go back to basic math, work through all the college courses, and come out the other side. Were there months, exam times, that I really questioned my capacity to do it, but I wasn't going to back down. And I just took full on owning the fact that these little bits of classes that I succeeded in were the witness to me to do the next one and to do the next one.
It is incredible that you accomplished so much with so little resources, but there must have been something in you that made you feel like you could do it.
So, Gertrude, I didn't have a name for this. It's only upon reflection of all the gifts that I was offered in the course of me. And it came about because I said yes to things, that when I said yes, another door was allowed to open. And as I said, that it wasn't that any part of my life journey was unworthy, but it was to stop. That would have been unworthy. I didn't know that. I just knew that this piece in me was a drive to take the next step. When I took a job and it was horrible and I wasn't having fun, and 3 months later I quit. It was really perfection, because me quitting allowed the next piece to come in.
Unfold.
And I never could have understood it in the mind space I had then. It's only been through the reflection. I'm 61 now, and I started this reflection back in my 50. And I can see the tendrils, I can see the threads of connection, and I can see it was my openness and my true insistence on joy, I might even say, that if I got a job and I wasn't happy with it and the people were grumpy, and I'd be like, I'm out of here, and, and my father would be like, can you stay any place at a job for more than 6 months? I'm like, I don't know. When I find the right one, maybe I will.
Oh, man.
Yes.
It is incredible. It's incredible. Now, you met those two men named Vince, one representing danger, the other one representing destiny. What did that moment shift? How did that moment shift your path?
So as I was in the nightclub, there was such a magnetism between myself and the Vince that would be my savior out of the life that I had led. But I didn't know it. I just knew this felt crazy real. It wasn't sexual at all. It was truly a soul connection. And that scared the crap out of me. Scared the crap out of me. And here's this other Vince he comes from the life that I'm already in. He's like, let's go party. We're going to fly. We're going to go do this. We're going to end up over here, and then I'll fly you back. And I'm like, yeah, that's my life. That's where I've been. But then the first Vince, who was calm and sedate and just thought I was this amazing, beautiful creature that would come sit on his lap in between that Vince and the other Vince, it brought to me a potential. It brought to me, it was almost that same tense anxiety, yet excitement and wonder that I experienced on the bed at the brothel of the next step. This could be the next step. Are you ready? Are we ready? Because that question is an internal question. And can we do it? And I took the faith that the joy that I felt when I was with all the things that I said, I'm not ready for a relationship. I'm not ready, but I got to try this because it's time.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Now, you speak about the ache in your chest as a compass. How can others recognize their heart compass moment?
When you're feeling, and it's really going to be, it's not going to be up here, and it's not going to be up here. It's going to be in the area of your chest, and it's going to be a fear with this tinge of excitement, this tinge of curiosity. And that is your soul and your heart navigating you to take the next step that it is that's causing this. So you had a thought, you had a vision of something different, and then you went, and it's not that it's easy, and it's not that it's not scary, and it's not that, I say I had two other things besides that resume. I needed compassion and forgiveness. I needed compassion for all the decisions I was going to have to make. And I needed forgiveness to myself for all those decisions I made that didn't turn out the way I really wanted them to.
Yeah.
Right?
It's amazing.
Yeah, but in the end of the journey, all of those decisions, how they turned out right, wrong, in grace or in the glory of the moment, they all still give you tidbits of data points for you to live in this maturity and the growth in the place that we stand at the moment. They all come together and coalesce. They're all very important.
Now, addiction showed up again and again in your journey. What finally broke the cycle for you?
The addiction became, as I was taking steps and doing the drugs themselves. I would have what I called an observer. So in my book, the observer, it was out really far initially. It saw me taking acts to get drugs.
Mm.
And then as I progressed in my addiction and became more aware, like I was running a straight roll and road through society, and then I'd fall back into it again. The observer was still there, and now it was a little closer. And it was looking at what was happening around me, and it was giving me a reflection. So you could call it your consciousness, your self-consciousness. For me, I called it my observer. And finally, this observer was like right here as I witnessed the most generous, sweet, loving man who was dating a woman who was into drugs. He had never done drugs. And through a soft friendship, I witnessed him begin to lose everything in his life as he traveled that path of addiction. And it
Mm.
was so raw. It was so raw. And at that point, I had bought a house, and I could see that if I kept myself on this journey, that I too
Would
would
go down
lose
that
every.
road.
Yeah, yeah. And that it was so raw and it was so painful that that was it. And literally it was the last time. So for all the months before, when I had gone back in, I had been clean for years. It was like, this is it. This is the last time. This will be the party weekend that I say, no more. And then all
Mm.
of a sudden it goes from a weekend to a week. And yeah, so it was really witnessing someone else almost mirroring a journey that
Yeah,
could
yeah,
be me. And
that's amazing.
I was open enough to see it.
Now, you described a friendship with a woman who helped you laugh again. Why was that laughter so healing? Tell us
Oh,
about
yes, thank you for asking about her. Um, so unexpected, and I really didn't truly understand that the Sherry who was throwing up, her carelessness, her irresponsibility in the face, thinking it was joy, thinking it was, oh,
it.
I'm just a spontaneous person. When I met Lee, she really connected me back to see that frivolous part, that piece of me that was irrelevant, to what was good and right, kind of brought the goo and the metamorphosis to a close, to say, Sherry, you forgot your laughter. You forgot that was fake laughter. That
Joy.
was you showing up,
Right.
not you. And in her presence, I could be me. And in her presence, there was no judgment of the life that I had lived. And we could make jokes and we could shop at the box stores and buy clothes and be silly. And that brought the child open back to me. That allowed me to see it was time to do something different and to be ready. She kind of prepped me for those two Vinces, you know.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Now let's go to your framework, the gift that you're going to leave our audience with. It's revisit, reframe, reconnect. It's very powerful. Can you walk us through how it works in real life?
Absolutely, it'd be my pleasure. The the revisit is where I talk about there is no high of events that were joyful that sit any different than what many people consider the lows of their life, the
Mm.
traumas, the pains, um, even the incidents that they caused, right? They in our typical society, we have above the line and below the line.
Right.
And what I found for me in these last 10 years was that it took me to bring up all those moments that were considered shameful, were considered painful, were moments of my life that maybe I didn't really want to focus on. And I brought them to that same line that all the happiness, that all the fun, that all of the momentous occasions sat. And when I
Mm-hmm.
did that, it was in reflection that I saw how meaningful this entire journey was. If I took it in little bits, you could go, oh, that's so sad. But when
Yeah.
you look
Putting
at
it together.
yeah,
Mm,
and this just came to me, and it was like, okay, well, let's take some of the feeling and emotion out of it, and let's call them data points. If you put all your data points on the timeline, then you can see that who you're showing up today is literally the mature version of you having gone through all of those
mm,
moments in your life, right? And
mm,
so the next step is to reframe it and say, I was a prostitute. Here's an example. But what I learned from being a prostitute is love, deep, deep love. That I see people who can be in a struggle, that can be being a jerk. And I understand that they're on their individual journey, they're on their individual timeline. And I understand that those, say, a homeless person, they're warriors in my mind. They are traveling the deepest, darkest path of the soul to find their way through it and out of it. And it is in those moments of the journey of our life that we connect, that we can understand another human being. They're traveling this this piece of their journey, and wherever side it ends up for them as an individual, it's important
yes.
for us as the witness of their life, and this would stand for any person who is in our current life, that we are their witness. We are not any other element other than a part that connects. And whatever that connection piece might be for each of us depends and is based on those data points that we've collected along the way. It allows us to be empathetic. It allows us to connect, just to say, I too have been there. And brings together the meaning plus the connection plus the maturity of who we are as human individuals.
Yeah.
Right? And then that reframing allows us to reconnect, which is the third piece of it, to who we are as our individual selves, to reconnect with who we are and to love, truly love the journey that we've been on.
Yeah.
That there is no shame necessary, because you wouldn't say a child who is told not to put their hand on a hot stove and does anyway. It's not a moment to be ashamed of, but our journeys, they increase as we increase as in age and maturity. And those lessons are ones that we take on. And so my huge draw is to understand through these steps that we can all release shame. And in doing that, it brings us to reframing who and how we see ourselves.
Now let's end our interview by teleporting you back into the past. I'm going to take you back to the younger you, Sherry.
Okay.
That young woman who was in the middle of a bit of a storm in her life. Just in case there are women who are listening to this podcast who carry shame or secrecy, what do you want these women to know right now? Or what would you have wanted somebody to have said to you at that time?
In the midst of the actions that we're taking in our life, there are very valuable key points that we take in at the time. And what I can tell you is that those things that you take in at the time, the pains, the aches, the tears, the shame, they all meet in a beautiful, beautiful point of view. If you just allow yourself to understand that any actions that you take, any things that you have put out into the world, they are valuable, and they are you, and they are very unique and important to who you are and who you show up as. And especially in today's world, I want to really emphasize that whole journey, sum total, all the data points included, are needed for the moment that we live in today in our world.
Absolutely wonderful. Sherry, I've got your website at the bottom of the screen so that if anybody wants to reach out to you, tell us how you are empowering women right now.
I am on a new journey myself. If you had looked at my life as I just explained it, I reached the top of the mountain. I traveled from the bottom. I worked my way up. I was kicking back in the sunshine. And then my life has changed again. So I've lost the government job due to the evolutions of our society. And I am ready to get out there and be the voice and be the light and the beacon that can bring people forward. And so I have the programs to work through and reframe shame. I'm available for one-on-ones, and I'm here on the podcast to just get my voice and my light and really bring some smiles and some joys out.
Wonderful, Sherry. Thank you so much for coming online and sharing your incredible story with us today.
It's been a pleasure.
And thank you to everybody who tuned in. The Her Story Circle is not just a podcast. We are a social impact movement that brings you the stories and voices of women from all over the world. We share our stories to uplift you, to inspire you, to energize you, but most importantly, to take you from where you are now to where you're trying to go. So if you are a woman who has lived with shame and secrecy from past deeds, things that have happened in your life, here is a mentor, here is a coach who can help you move into this next phase of your life where nobody judges you. Nobody looks down at you. It was a phase. It was a data point, as you said, Sherry. I really like that, which without those data points, you would not be you. So I'll be back again tomorrow, everybody, with yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And Sherry, thank you again for this incredible interview.
My pleasure.
Bye for now, everybody. Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Her Story Circle podcast for more updates. And join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time, keep making her story.